So it's streaming.
Already?
Yeah. And then we come here.
So no, the mics are just the built-in mics. Anything else you need to plug in?
I should. You know what I mean? There's not much more than we'll go out and check this in a second.
Okay.
But, and also let me ask them if it's all right that we live stream.
Yeah. That's why I'm number 2. Yes, I'm an impersonator here. I get the original show.
It doesn't matter that you get together doing the AB.
Take a look out, and I actually check out there.
Yeah.
You don't have to share or anything.
Oh, you mean Boston?
We are lots of so when you yes. Oh yeah, such a good band. Love the purple shirts.
It's coming out. I'm still finishing up the edit.
Okay. So we're working on programming for 2018. So I want to do something
Jason, Mike, nice to meet you. I'm gonna be live streaming. Is that a word out here? I just wanted to check with everyone else. Yeah, exactly. Good to tell me. Yeah. Oh, shit. Yeah, that's
I don't have a video. And then we got some programming for December 2018. So I never want to do that.
You're not on topic. That's awesome. Are you looking for like speakers or other comments like things?
So we're taking the games that are right where we're going to do right that. We call it programming. So we get to center. They go in the audience and like and strings might be like a singer would be like. And the goal is to get them to make a game project in that body of time. And essentially beyond just we're thinking of having like bigger tracks.
They would love that. I don't think they've
They've never just wired games out of them. So like right to my.
Yeah, I think
I'm gonna say this.
yeah, I think it's only going to be maybe spotlight all of the songs. It's like it's practice skills, game design, project management, teamwork, and makes it across multiple media. We're featured on two. Yeah, it's great. That's a great skill.
Oh, his name is Michael. He's the one that he's basically the guy that does Mr. You should reach out to the chair and then CC the chair. The more people who talk to you, the more likely he would say yes or no, but he won't give you the so I still don't have to. If he's interested.
That he's interested.
Yeah.
Did you see?
Just footage. So once we, it's not even color check.
Is
Yes.
that part of the money you already paid for, or do you pay more?
Actually, Vivian offers the one who.
This guy. Alright.
Yeah. She was one who was hired. She offered to do it, so it's like no fun.
Yeah. So there's like thousands of images online.
I know what it is. Like I have no idea.
I know how to change my settings on the screen.
Yeah, in terms of I still run Fig, still run Boston, and still do all the other stuff.
I've been doing it a whole lot.
Also, in all my spare time, running a game company that does. Is a good thing. So looking at AR, MR applications for that also. I think we're gonna probably try to aim to one that are right now, we're really looking at it's like 3D camera and then overlay 4D camera so you can like walk around. It's very, very simple. All right, well.
Also, well, they're not all also like so I just have like
I'll be right back.
I came back yeah, we can.
I will. I think it just went.
That's not high risk.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. I mean, that's how it is anyway. It's an accurate yeah. But yeah, it was pretty helpful. Yeah. The way he's telling you, he knows everything. It's like they're will and zero.
All right, Elliott, they can see you now.
I can move here so we can send a middle color.
Yeah.
You guys see him?
Yeah.
I want to sit right in front of Elliott.
So we're going to be talking about yeah, exactly. That's what we'll do.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Oh, hey Elliott, can you do a sound test? Can you hear me okay? Not quite. Alright. Yeah, we might need you to talk extra loud on it. So they're not getting the audio through the thing. But other than that, I think we can get. Alright, awesome. So thanks everyone for coming here. This is we've got a panel. We're going to be talking about entertainment VR. Going to introduce everyone down the line. I guess. So my name is Will Brierly. I have a PR firm that represents a bunch of video games and VR related things and non-VR related things. And then I also have video games that I've made. One of them has VR support, and it's a soda drinking simulation. And then I'm working on a first-person televangelist simulator that also has VR support. We'll talk about that a little later too. And so let's go down the line and kind of share what everyone's working on.
Hi everyone, I'm
Hello. Hey everybody. I'm Sean Halloran. I'm a programmer at Harmonix. I most recently worked on VR project Rock Band VR for the Oculus Rift. We've partnered with Oculus before on projects, and outside of that, I've been a kind of long-time VR hobbyist, or at least as long as one can be a long-time hobbyist in a kind of new industry. But ever since the kind of early prototype days of the Oculus dev kit, I've been around different VR research labs from Worcester's Human Interaction in Virtual Environments Lab to some overseas work. And now I currently work at Harmonix on new VR projects.
Hi, my name is Caroline Murphy, and I am Director of Marketing and Business Development at Intrepid, and a founder and CEO of Boston Festival of Indie Games, and run Boston Indies, and I'm Chief Creative Officer at another company. I do a lot of things. So I think I'm mostly here to be representative of the kind of business and kind of market perspective from the game side. Having been, doing Boston Fig for the last 5 years, I've seen how it's impacted the indie games industry as well as the industry at large, and so kind of here to lend that voice.
I'm Chris Chung. I'm an indie game developer, founder and president of MODERATOR, my own company, and also a project manager at Firehose Games. I've worked on a couple of VR projects, so I was the first-person cat simulator in 2015. And a year later, added VR support for the Vive and also PlayStation VR. And then also worked on another Vive game called King Kaiju, which is a Godzilla-like game where you destroy a city.
Hello, I'm Mike Levine of HappyGiant and Pileated Pictures. Let's see, our latest game is called Hologrid Monster Battle. It is an AR and VR game. I think it's the only. It's really low. I think it's the only AR VR cross-platform game out there. At least I'm just gonna keep saying that until someone tells me I'm wrong. I used to work at LucasArts way back in the day, and Hologrid is the latest game we made with Phil Tippett, who's a visual effects legend. If you guys have seen Star Wars, remember the Hollow chess scene in the original movie. He created that, and we worked with him and his original creatures and used photogrammetry to scan them in and create this game. As I mentioned, it just came out on Gear VR. We're going to be showing it later tonight on Tango. It's out on mobile. It's coming out on HoloLens and many other platforms.
And, so Elliott, why don't you introduce yourself, please?
Hello, hopefully people can hear me. So my background is in 3D art and effects. About 8 years ago, I went to games. I got into VR about when Oculus One came out. Since then, I've had worked on projects with New York, on the New York Digital VR exhibit. Worked on Levine project, which was a tracking where you a project where you track people's hands and bodies through a room, and when you're actually touching objects and turning knobs, you're turning in a VR and in the room. It's a really cool thing. Sundance. I just recently worked on a museum installation at the Carnegie Museum of Art with Scatter that showcased Forged national artists, and so that was installed in the Hall of Architecture. And then working on other random VR, AR apps that aren't entertainment related for medical, art news, archaeology, things like that. And then we're also working on virtual reality word game, if we can merge that. So hopefully there'll be more on that later.
Awesome, thanks, Elliott. So, so we're gonna kind of have to. All right. So yeah, so it's been about a year or so since it's getting close to the year point of like full kind of commercial availability of it. I mean, you say the Virtual Boy or other things came before it, but this is when you had PlayStation VR. It's the first Christmas season, something like that was out. So I kind of want to get all of your opinions on what you think of this. Is this going to be something that's going to be sticking around for a while, or is it a fad? Or what are your thoughts? Let's go down the line and kind of see what you think.
Well, I'll take the easy answer as the first one here. I am always super encouraged by just the existence and the growth of meetups just like this. The fact that there is so much interest across so many different industries and whatnot. To me, although someone very immersed in VR development and whatnot, it feels like in the first year VR has fairly successfully permeated so many different parts of culture. So not only have we hit the low bar of you can go buy one at Best Buy down the street. It might be expensive, but it'll at least be there. We also have firm examples of VR in different artistic mediums, VR in the music scene, VR at Sundance, VR for training, and of course VR for games. So the fact that we have so much of all of that and only getting more of it, and that is now a kind of household word that you could say, oh man, have you tried the Oculus yet? That feels like a really successful first year to me.
So I'm going to take the exact opposite tack and say that the launch of VR, while exciting from a technological perspective, is vastly underwhelming. I think that we're just early. It's just really, really early, and it's going to take probably 3 to 5 years for the technology and the expectations to kind of come together in a way that's both mass producible and interesting to a wide consumer audience. I think that predictions right now are that the market for AR, VR, MR stuff is going to grow to something like 106 billion by the year 2020. Right now, it's I think maybe 5% of that right now, and most of that is in hardware sales, and it's expected for that to remain more than 50% of that to be hardware sales. So on the software side of things are just not caught up. It's going to take a while.
I think initially I was very optimistic last year about it. Tried it for the first time and it was amazing. And I was like, there's so many applications in this, I can do so many things. But yeah, after a year of being both a developer and a consumer, it's still cool, but I feel like there's still a long way to go. And costs are still really high, so there isn't a large user base right now, at least from a commercial game standpoint. Like our game Tenkaiju sold okay, but not that great, and that's because A, not a lot of people have the hardware, and B, it's really easy to make VR games, so there are hundreds coming out all the time. So it's kind of there's a lot of excitement from developers behind it, not so much from consumers. I think consumers are expecting a lot more, deeper experiences and just bigger games and other experiences, and developers just can't produce that yet. So I think there's kind of a mismatch between what it could be and what it is currently, and I think it's here to stay, but I think the excitement's kind of died down a little bit for a lot of people.
Okay. I think we hear the Wild West analogy a lot in these early days of VR and AR, and I think that's true. And you can sort of take it one step further with, we have the good, let's call it the weird, experimental, and the ugly. You're definitely seeing high quality stuff, but as you said, it's easy to make VR games. There's no real bar, so you see big games and small games, and but since they're so close, I'll go down the middle. I'll be the mid runner. No, but it's there's no doubt in my mind that VR is finding a place in society, and I think it's even more encouraging from a business standpoint when you see what's going on in VR outside of games. Now, being a games person primarily most of my career, the thing that is sort of makes me nervous, if I was all in on VR, I'd probably sleep less about this, but I have a Vive at home, I have a Gear VR, I also have a 13-year-old son, and he's typical, he plays Xbox, and he has all these things available to them, and he's seen it all, and he's been blown away by it, but he doesn't want to go back. It's easier to kick back on the couch and play 2K or whatever for him, or play with his friends. And why is that? Is it because have developers not figured out the secret sauce yet? Maybe we don't have the killer app in VR that everyone is talking about and wants to play. I think that's part of it. I think it'll come. When, who knows? It's all timing, and this is one way that's going to happen. it's just a question of, is it going to be as big from a sort of entertainment consumer mass market level as people are predicting? Hard to say.
Thanks. So, yeah.
I think that the first year is actually been pretty exciting. I don't really measure success in VR as a lot of adoption because the hardware is so nascent. One of the problems with the PC VR, like the Vive and the Oculus, is you need a computer that's up to spec, and they're kind of hard to set up. Whereas PlayStation VR seems easy to set up, but it's sort of a lesser headset. It's high fidelity, and so I think there's issues with hardware, and then mobile VR is going bonanza, but the hardware is not there yet either. But when you look at companies like out of Boston's own Alchemy Labs, who were just acquired by Google, and they had success with VR, with Job Simulator, and then Rick and Morty. And so they're sort of like the sort of diamond in the rough right now, whereas they did everything right, and I would say that they were successful with a VR game when it comes to maybe creating your own games and marketing them and making a lot of money off them in VR right now. That's a bit risky, but it's an excellent time to do contract work in VR. Whether or not you're doing art or development, there's so much contract work out there, and it's partially in games, and some of it, actually a lot of it is in other areas. But I mean, if you're using Unity per se, it doesn't really matter. You can make it for anything. I think that the VR hardware manufacturers and a lot of developers and analysts will all agree that really the mining days for people making VR and high quality VR are still a few years off. But it's still, I mean, if you're publishing a game on Steam and expect to make millions, it's just like, it's getting more and more like the App Store for iOS, where it's just getting saturated with stuff. But I think eventually hardware and software are catching up quickly, and the quicker the barrier to entry lowers for consumers to have high quality VR experiences, the better off we'll be. And I see that coming soon. It's not here yet, though.
Awesome, thank you. And so, one thing I wanted to get everyone's opinion on here too is, there's a lot of different challenges to making, something in VR, whether it's, or launching something. So, the interesting thing is, like, the technical aspects to make something, be able to exist in a VR world isn't super challenging. Making something that people want to stay in is definitely a challenge, but there's a lot of other things, everything from like displaying a game at a trade show, how can you move people through a experience fast enough where it's still meaningful. There's a lot of, or that they don't all end up getting some gross eye disease or whatever. Like, there's a lot of different challenges, right? I wanted to kind of go down the line and see if there are any that are, through your experiences that have really stuck out that might be surprising to people that we might not know about. So.
I'd like to tackle the eye disease though.
Wipes, disposable alcohol wipes. They're very cheap. No one has any excuse for the headsets. I mean, they'd probably do something in your eye, but yeah. Anyway, speaking of doing like live demos of VR and whatnot, you kind of get into the wide range of consumer expectations created by all the different headsets now, and the vast difference in quality between what a mobile headset with a phone in it might do well for staying seated in one place and not doing too much or displaying anything too high fidelity versus your expensive Vive setup where you're walking around a room and doing all this kind of stuff. So from everywhere from marketing to explaining to someone at a trade show what your product does, I think VR has a huge language problem right now. The fact that we can't even agree on hashtags on Twitter is speaks to how much of a problem it is, where you have you might be demoing something which is a virtual reality experience or augmented reality experience or some kind of new innovative blend of the two. As we see more products released now the HoloLens and Google Glass, which people have both called augmented reality in the past, but are two very different things in practice. Finding out first as developers how to classify these things and this whole spectrum of immersive computing, and then figure out how to communicate that to consumers is a huge challenge, which I don't think, unless we have a solution right now as a panel of experts, that anyone's a really good answer to.
Just out of curiosity, how many people actually own a VR system or something, an AR system, something that's similar between? And this is at we're in a place where we're talking about this specifically. So that kind of gives you an idea of the adoption, and then the set of expectations that come with adoption change the way that people interact with when you're demoing. So huge problems at like trade shows, or if you're trying to demo something. If you're trying to set up anything using the HTC Vive, that's a room-based VR setup, and you need a contained space, and you need to be able to actually set that up in a way that makes sense and is going to work for your demo. Other issues that arise that you probably all know about, there's a motion sickness issue. They've actually shown, studies have shown that, they're getting better and better at the motion sickness thing, but interestingly, male-bodied people get sick less frequently than female-bodied people for some reason. And so that's another challenge, overcoming that, and like how do you even frame that? That's just a hard challenge. And I don't know, but that's the question, right? Other issues that come up? That's basically, that's what I got.
So we demoed a VR game at PAX East a couple years ago, a big gaming conference. And there were a bunch of just like little issues that you don't tend to think about. So if you bring like a regular kind of 2D game, you have a mouse and keyboard or your controller, and most people sit down, play the game, they're fine, and there's no like usability issues typically. And with VR, we had to set, we were on the Vive, so we had to set up, the PC, the headset, the two controllers, the two cameras in the space that we had, and there were always a lot of people like in line to play the game, which at a conference everyone's like wanting to play everything, but there were things like a lot of people hadn't tried VR before, so they don't understand the boundaries of the room. So you had people it didn't help that our game was about making a mess and slaughtering things really hard, but we had people like winding up and nailing their friends in the groin just because they were so immersed in it. And we had one person, so at PAX, a lot of people dress up as gaming characters, other like characters. And we had a woman come up who was in a very flashy, shiny suit, and we learned that totally messes with the tracking. So the cameras send out like IR rays or whatever, and it was just bouncing off her costume, and like she was getting super motion sick just because the game had no idea what to do. So it's just like a bunch of little things like that like as a developer, we kind of understand the constraints and boundaries, but showing it to new people for the first time, they first you have to convince them that, you should put this thing on your head that makes it so you can't see what's around you. And then you have to convince them, this is how you play, it's a brand new experience. And then you have to account for they can literally do anything because they're moving their whole body and hitting people and scraping up the controllers and all this crazy stuff. But there's just a bunch of little things on the consumer side. And that's before you even get to the marketing of trying to get them to buy the game after that.
Have you guys ever watched people doing VR? It's really funny.
Except when you get it. We had one of our developers get nailed in the wrist by somebody.
Yeah, I mean, it seems we haven't demoed VR as much at trade shows, but when you see it being demoed, at least the one, it has a sort of mystery thing, like when people go into those booths or whatever, so people, what are they seeing? Because you don't really know what they're doing. I mean, I will say on the AR side, like with HoloLens, when you try to demo that has an added component because it looks at your pupillary distance, and people have different pupillary distances, so if you put that on someone with a kind of big head, put on someone with a really skinny head, and like completely won't work for them, and the tracking will be off. So if you're trying to demo that, it's really too time consuming to sort of have every single person go through the setup. So you sort of just cross your fingers and hope it's going to work for most people. But if it doesn't, it's not a good experience. So there's issues like that as well.
What about you, Elliott?
I have two instances to speak about this. One was demoing Waggle Words, which is a VR game set inside of a giant beehive. We demoed around PAX East in the Western lobby with a Vive, which was interesting, setting that up in the lobby. But you can do it. And then we demoed it also at the main max party at PAX. And what we wound up doing, it's a game where you can stand. But we wound up taking the floor out of the game, which it doesn't need anyway, and I wound up sitting people down on like a circular cushion chair. And in doing that, people weren't getting dizzy or like going to hit anyone, and I just had to reach their hands out and I put the controllers in their hands, and they kind of acted like it's T-Rex the whole time, even though they didn't have to. So we designed the game so that you can just sort of sit in a chair and play this game, or you can stand. And a lot is into game design, but we found that easing people into the game who have never played or even done VR before was much more comfortable for them to be sitting in something where their arms aren't going to hit. And it is a room scale game, but you don't really need to move around. The other is the helmet project at the Carnegie Museum. We designed 5 worlds, the VR worlds, with a central lobby that the museum people would go to, and we designed them to be a limited experience where they could only move within 7 square feet. And then we had each room timed for a certain amount, so they could see people online, like how they're interacting. And then they would have a limited amount of time and sort of a roped off space where they couldn't hit anybody, but that was out in the open. And in between every person experiencing the art, someone from the museum would wipe down the headset with alcohol, and there was padding around it to try to stop the spread of pink eye and all that. So it is possible to demo in a setting like that. One more thing is that the first Vision Summit, speaks maybe to what Caroline was saying, is that Unity had a Vision Summit, and the first one, Valve was there setting up a whole bunch of booths, and everybody's HTC Vives are interfering with each other's, and it was a total nightmare. So that was the worst case, where it took them like 5 hours to get that working. And then for marketing things, Alchemy has a plugin or something that they're working on where they're shooting mixed reality videos. I think Space Pirate Trainer, fantastic contraption, and Johnson Simulator have all used it, and it's a really excellent way to show people in a 2D format what VR is like by showing the player in the world that they're in. I think that's going to be key.
Awesome. Thank you. So we're going to open it up to questions in a little bit, but what I wanted to do, one more question I want to ask is, there's a lot of possible directions VR is going, right now, also on the AR side too. What are things that you're most excited about right now, as far as like things coming up in the near future or further along that you think are going to bypass this, kind of get over the next round of people getting into this? So what are things you're super psyched about in VR? So what do you think?
One of the things I'm personally excited about, outside of the realm of like personal VR headsets, is one approach to deal with the like cost and having the space and everything are VR installations, and there are a few of them in the US and Canada now, where you can go to this like laser tag like arena and pick up a big like plastic gun or controller, put on a bulky headset, and run around with your friends, and like suck up ghosts and like Ghostbusters or do whatever you want. And I'm really excited for that in the near term, both at the possibility of one coming to Boston and to like try to create like profitable business around like high quality VR that would sustain people's interests in it, kind of while the consumer side of headsets finally like reach the level of quality and affordability that a lot of consumers are still expecting and probably being disappointed by. And then similarly to that, if you look at like foreign markets for VR, like over in Asia, like there are more like personal like virtual reality headsets in consumers' hands in China than there are in the US. And there's like hundreds more like VR arcades and VR experience centers open opening all over South Korea, Japan, China, and like the VR market, which brings the experience into the future, might not even be like in North America or anywhere around here. It might be imported over from China. So there's interesting future.
So I totally agree with Sean. I think that some of the most exciting applications for VR in the near term are things where we're blending realities. And I think there is actually a group that's running a VR AR thing out of Stronghold Ops, which is down in Norwood, Massachusetts. And so I think that they have a demo running where you run through and it's like a first-person shooter in a it's like a paintball arena otherwise. So I forget the name of the company that does that, which that's not good. But if you Google it, maybe it'll come up. There's a couple of technologies that, so at the last Vision conference, there were a bunch of different demos and some really exciting technologies that I wanted to bring up because I think they're really cool advancements. So there's a company called HappyGiant, and they have like a light field technology that helps with depth perception. And this is the application for this is best used when you're trying to place things in a mixed reality space. So it's really good for AR applications. So if you want something to be on your hand, using that light field technology is able to actually figure out where you are placing the object. There's a company called Vermont, and they have a mixed reality, it's actually, this technology has existed for a while where you have something that's almost like a QR code, like a book of QR codes, and as you flip through them, they create different assets that render in real time in front of you, and so it helps you to, it's just helpful for placement and things being within a reasonable part of technology, like your field of vision. And then let's see, Acer is working with Microsoft and to work on kind of improving sensors in the hardware space and having better tracking. And then there's a company called Leap Motion that's working with Qualcomm to do hand tracking. So similarly to how Harmonix kind of had the frame of a body that is tracked when you're doing something like Dance Central and other tech like that, now they're starting to create this for hands as well, so that we won't have to have as many controllers in our hands and be able to just swipe and move your hands around and do gestures with your hands and that'll control things. And I think that those are big innovations that are going to push things along in this year. There's some other cool software innovations, but I'll leave that for later.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of these like new technologies. Like I think, like in a VR only space, like hand tracking is a big one. Like holding the controllers feels okay, but like, if you can have full control of your hands and fingers, I think that'd be awesome. Just like some of the things like getting rid of the wires, because like but like I think if we can get standalone VR headsets, I think Google just announced one that like doesn't require a phone or anything, it's just a standalone headset. I think adoption will go up and it'll just be easier to use it. Because even like at home, I have to turn on my PC, I have to turn on the VR software, and then gear up with this stuff, and then I can start playing something. It's kind of a hassle. So there's like a lot of technological improvements I think that we could use. And in terms of software, I think there are some like promising games coming out, but I don't know too much about outside of games. But I feel like there's a lot to be done there with like training simulations and like art applications. There's plenty of like sculpting and painting tools. I think there's a lot of room there to kind of expand what VR can do. And then other than that, I haven't tried any AR yet, or any of the newer AR. But I feel like that might be kind of like the evolution of VR. Like instead of being closed into like a digital world, being able to be in the real world with digital elements, I think is really exciting.
Yeah, and they talked about this, I think, at the Facebook conference that AR and VR really have more in common than they have different. There's one key difference, but the technology, 6DOF, all the sensors, I mean, it's really converging. So I see it not too distant future where you flip a switch and go from VR to AR. But yeah, I agree with everything you guys said about the arcades. With this word of caution. I think everyone is sort of hedging right now that the arcades are going to be big, and like being old enough, having lived through the first wave of VR arcades when I worked at LucasArts, we used to drive 2 hours out to the East Bay to go to this VR bar thing, and it was all interconnected, and those didn't last long. And I'm just a little worried that if these VR arcades don't take off and survive, like, because in my opinion, there's no way the high-end quote VR right now is going to, as it exists today, it's going to spread on a mass market medium. That's why we came out with our VR game on the Gear. We're very committed to mobile VR, and my hope is that the arcades sort of teach people and get people excited about VR. The mobile VR will be catching up, and they're adding 6-stop and all kinds of the things the high end has, and hopefully people will be able to go home and get a similar equivalent experience and be happy.
What do you think, Elliott?
I think like Chris stole my thunder. Like Google's coming out with a standalone VR player that was announced a couple days ago. So I think that free untethering VR experience and not being dependent on the Android phone will be key to VR success in the future. I'm hopeful that Apple will come out with some sort of thing at some point to compete with the Android stuff. I don't know if that would be sort of glasses that tint into VR, AR, or something lightweight. I think that'd be really cool. But I mean, just the untethered experience is sort of what I'm banking on. And then also what I think is really exciting are all the new tracking ways to track people, motions like hands, feet, things in the room. So like Lenovo has a new phone out that has Tango support and Daydream support built into one. So I think that sort of the merging of different tracking and higher powered mobile devices will be something to look forward to. I have to sort of caution people about the VR arcades too, because there's already been a lot of instances of, for developers at least, of having the games pirated and being put into VR arcades. So especially in other countries, and so that's something that I don't know if the law will ever catch up with or can deal with, but I guess that's about it right now.
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, it's interesting because the comparisons with the VR arcades to the early days of arcades, you had piracy with arcade games too, and so people would make the boards and or make a copy of the game and put bootleg versions of the game out there. And the arcades were also kind of like where you get the highest end version of the version of Mortal Kombat on arcade wasn't as good as the Super Nintendo. I mean, was better than the Super Nintendo version. We might see something like that in the future, but it's also a different sort of experience too, where you're walking around potentially a room that is set specifically for this game too, which is an interesting thing, So I wanted to. Oh, sorry. It's like I like going to MODERATOR, but I don't want it in my home. Exactly. Yeah. And so.
Actually, it's interesting you bring that up, especially the Mortal Kombat example, because we're just starting to see publishers now, like I believe I was reading earlier this week, there's a Swiss company now, a few others in Europe, that are funding games for development in arcades to later be released at home. So that in one way it's a bit of a shotgun approach to, try to publish your game on every possible avenue for VR when the market's still so small, but making something which could be profitable or attempt to be profitable in both an installation setting and an at-home setting, I think is definitely going to be a trend we start to see in the next year.
Yeah, definitely. As a developers too, if you were doing what you're doing now, would you find yourself more towards interested in doing kind of specific space things, whether it's making a game specifically for an arcade or Elliott already does a lot of installation stuff, but do you see any sort of way you'd be leaning towards one or the other?
Well, for Rock Band VR, for example, it's a game which not only requires you to have a headset with 2-track touch controllers, but to also find a Rock Band guitar on which you can attach the controller, attach the tracked Oculus controller onto your Rock Band guitar, which is a really great experience bringing a whole other object into VR with you. So you look down, and the guitar in real life is your guitar in the game. It's one-to-one, and it's kind of magical to have that tactile, like, object in VR and then at-home VR experience. But that said, like, you know, it's maybe the like highest accessory requirement of any VR game right now. So obviously, you know, like, I'm very attracted to the idea of like, well, what if we can make that, but with an even cooler, more expensive guitar, and we wouldn't have to try to market that to people. They could just go down to the street of the city and play like the ultimate version of Rock Band VR or whatnot. So yeah, as someone who likes plastic accessories, it's a pretty interesting idea to me.
I think VR dating sims are going to be huge.
Totally.
I seriously do think, though, that one of the easy avenues into VR that that I think people are trying to think up a lot of really complex applications for VR when there's probably easier applications for VR. Like, we've all seen Westworld, right? Who doesn't want to, like, walk around in the Wild West and be a cowboy and, like, go flirt with girls at the bar and do things like that? I think those things are actually much more accessible within VR and more within reach. So I think narrative development within VR is going to get a little more juice in the next couple of years, and I think we'll see some interesting stuff there.
Yeah, I think if I was approached by somebody who wanted to make like the ultimate cat simulator or something in VR that you could only play at this one place, like, yeah, I would do that. That seems interesting. But yeah, at this point, it wouldn't be something I would take on myself, just because financially that's super risky.
Oh, yeah. Like if you were to more like if you would be interested in going more into like the arcade style thing, or if you know stick with mobile.
I mean, our strategy is to take the game to as many platforms as possible. I mean, that kind of comes from my days working at a bigger company, and we've been in some talks with some arcade people. I mean, honestly, with Hologrid VR, just to be perfectly transparent about it, I mean, when we first made the game, we had no plans to make a VR version of it. I mean, it was all about the AR side to it. Then we got into the Google Indie Games as a finalist, and we went out there, and all the Google people were like, "Why aren't you making a VR version of this?" And I was like, "Really? I thought VR, you got to run around and shoot things." And they really educated me and looked at like the kind of games that they put out on Daydream. Even though we haven't got it there yet, but like they're really interested in motion sickness, and they really liked Hologrid because it was a sitting experience, even though you can move around. It's like, oh, it's a board game in VR, and they saw that as a whole genre. So I was like, that kind of encouraged us to say, okay, let's get it there in VR. So, yeah, yes, arcade, sure.
Cool. What do you think, Elliott?
Well, the project that we did for the Carnegie was amazing because it was we built an experience for a specific hardware setup. So it was 1080 cards and super high processors, SSD drives, and if you're building for a high-end spec and you know that's what the arcade's going to be or the installation's going to be, it's very liberating. You can basically break all the rules of what VR is supposed to be, especially for mobile. I've been trying to get away from mobile for 8 years. I really hate mobile, but I keep getting sucked back into it. So the museum piece installation, and I imagine certain video VR arcades, if they have the high-end GPUs and CPUs and hardware, it's actually a really pleasurable experience to not have to worry about vertical, how many shaders and materials and all that. It's really great.
That's awesome. So yeah, thanks for that. So I wanted to kind of open up to questions. Yes.
As a new developer, what platform would you recommend?
Unity.
Yep.
Unequivocally. Unity. Unity's like, well,
I mean, not programming. I meant device, whether mobile or
I think I'm partial to Vive just because I tried an earlier version of Oculus, and it was like my first experience with VR. It was awesome, and then I tried Vive right after that, where you had your hands. I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. something Vive or now Oculus with Touch. Like being able to move around the space with your hands, so I think it's really awesome. But it also comes down to like what experience you're trying to make. Yeah.
Actually, important question. Do you want to make money?
There are a lot of games.
Some yes.
I don't know how many are making money.
Yeah, I think probably everyone on the panel could tell you a varying degree of this, but I would either try to find a funded deal with a platform holder or a third party, in which case they're going to dictate for you the platform, or if you want to try to make it on your own, Gear VR and mobile VR, just because there are the most of those out there right now. And
it's tricky because like Gear has by far the biggest user base, but like when you really start to think about it and break it down, it's like, well, yeah, they have the biggest user base, but how engaged are they? Like the people who have the Vive and the Oculus, those are gamers. They're into it, and you hope they're buying some games or at least using it. Gear people, I kind of get the impression that 50% or more put it on a desk or the shelf, and it's already collecting dust or whatever.
I think a lot of those were like free with the phone too.
Exactly.
So people probably got them and just didn't.
Right.
Yeah.
I have another free one in the mail.
Yes.
Yeah, so I kind of want to ask about something that hasn't touched on. I mean, you mentioned it with the Sundance thing, but VR, film for VR. Whether, since there are festivals already in place in movie theaters, there are already these installations that could incorporate VR with them, but, and also since film, like you were saying about, like, really, like, you have to teach them how to play, like, everyone knows how to watch a movie. I'm kind of interested in what you think about, like, how VR film is developing now.
So,
So his question was asking about applications for VR and film. So I know just a little bit about this. I'm by no means an expert on the films industry, but there are definitely, I've seen news stories about filmmakers that are filming their everything in 3D 360 camera so that they can have a VR experience for the film. I think that a lot of filmmakers push back on this, saying like the whole point of filmmaking is that you're telling a story through a certain lens. And if you're allowing the audience to choose that lens, then it alters the way that people enjoy the story fundamentally. So you want somebody to be looking at this important thing, and they're off over here looking at the clouds. So that could, it's I don't know, it's kind of a hard topic because it speaks to like artistic integrity, and that just gets into sticky areas.
Yeah, I'll show you this is an example of a different. This isn't 360 film like that style, but this is a thing that we're doing where this is a live performance in VR. So the actor is wearing a VR headset. It's doing real time lip sync and body tracking, and he's it's kind of like a parody of a televangelist show, and so we can actually perform this live, and people can play the game instead of buying a show. They're actually sitting in the audience in the show, experiencing it in 3D and VR, where they can actually. So it's a different sort of form, but the actor is actually switching all the cameras, doing all those different things. You're actually creating new types of shows instead of it just being like a linear show. You could actually join live into the audience, and actually we have there's a company I work with that has technology that can do that with live streaming 360 live content over the cable box without a PC. So you just plug in your VR headset into the box through the cable, and you instead of having to like download and kind of get the scrambly version, you get like a full 360 live feed from the Grammys or whatever, and you're just sitting there. But it changes the context of like the type of experience you're going to get too. So like early days of film, there was certain types of movies that worked well without sound, or to a live person playing music. So it's going to change the types of film, whether it's like live performance or pre-recorded 360 stuff. So there's a lot of possible options with that. So yes. Oh yes, Elliott.
Oh yeah. Hey, just wanted to chime in for a second. The group I work with, Scatter, they just had a short film that won all sorts of awards at Tribeca, and it was a movie called Blackout, and it's filmed subways, and they have volumetric filmmaking cameras where they're interviewing people and putting them into the subway car. And it's a film about sort of stories of New York type thing. And in Tribeca, they built a subway car for people to experience the VR in. So they put the VR headset in, and they were within the confines of the subway car, with holding onto the rail and seeing the people on one-to-one scale who are being interviewed and interacting with the film in a constrained space. So the people aren't just wandering off anywhere. They're actually constrained by the space they're in to watch the film that matches the space. So that was a really successful application of filmmaking in VR, and they also just won some awards at Sundance for 0 days. So I definitely recommend people look up Scatter and see what they're doing with VR filmmaking, because you definitely, as a film director, a filmmaker, want to think about all the possible ways that the viewer can screw up watching your film. But Scatter seems to have a good approach to VR filmmaking. There's a lot of other VR filmmakers who are working on things now that are helping develop. Definitely check out. Just look up like Tribeca and Sundance to see what people are doing.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's see. Yes, and Becca.
Hi. I work at a hospital, also a hospital, so totally different applications, but take all or none of these questions. But one, nausea is a problem. Is there a harm engineering problem or other issues? The second is that applications being developed for gaming and medicine are very different. So time of flight or structure of gut sensors, time of flight is more important for medicine. And the last thing is you can test the market and have less. You can tolerate more risk if the error is insignificant. So for medicine, that error is gigantic, and so there's no risk involved. And so I have seen. I won't say, but I've seen demos coming in where people are demoing the VR application on the TV screen and show how good it is. It's totally disappointing of what they're doing. And so, what tests do you use to call BS on an application that's actually going to have value? So, people process on it.
I could take the first bit of the question about the nausea problem. And is it a hardware problem versus a software problem? Absolutely both. The hardware has come a long ways in the past few years. Like anyone who's used any of the prototype Oculuses and then used like either PSVR or Vive or the latest Oculus could tell you that it's a huge difference. Just you put it on, it's kind of hard to like explain how it just feels better, but a lot of that is hardware improvements under the hood of the displays are getting higher resolution with higher frame rates. Like more research has been done to better understand the effects of things like low persistent displays that make your eyes experience less incorrect visual information on a subconscious level. So there's a lot of work done in that, which has gotten the hardware really far in the past year. So I would say that most of the responsibility for making comfortable VR experiences now is all on designers and software developers and whatnot. It's in the choice of, are you going to have a seated experience or are you going to have an experience which has some kind of locomotion to it, with a like high-end computer performing at like the target frame rate and a good display and a seated experience. I found my experience demoing to like amongst like hundreds of people at trade shows and whatnot that you can make a like comfortable enough experience for at least a lot of people who go to PAX. But at the same time, like people, the urge to try to innovate and create new experiences is going to always poke up against what's comfortable. So like I try to operate with like holding myself to the standard of, if I couldn't feel comfortable putting like any random person from a trade show or PAX or here into a headset for an experience, then I don't want to do this, because like, for other things in gaming you might know, oh, I don't like shooters or whatnot, so I'll just pass on that. But you might not know if like what your tolerance for comfort is in VR. and you shouldn't have to find that out if a designer is doing a good job.
I was gonna say on the hardware side, there is stuff coming like foveated rendering, for example, that like your eyes. And I've learned a lot about this from last year, but like your eyes do all these things that we just take for granted and don't realize, like when you're moving fast and blurring stuff out to look at the thing in front of you, and like VR for the most part currently does not do that right now. But that kind of like the more it becomes realistic, the less people will get nauseous theoretically. And in terms of the other part of your question, I mean, calling BS on it, I was just going to say, I mean, in my opinion, like I think we look to people like you, like the experts in the field who are actually evaluating this stuff. And if they're saying, hey, this doesn't work for us, because I have my, we work in all kinds of different things in education and different fields, and we're always working with experts in the field to validate what we're doing, or who cares?
I also would say that if it comes to a really high-risk medical application for something, that's something where I would imagine FDA regulations would apply, and so you would have to probably go through some kind of regulatory process, depending on what the application was.
I just think there's also it's so hard to separate like fact from fiction and hype from reality. For pretty much for everything, but with VR as well. Like I remember this story a year or two ago that someone sent me, and I was more cynical about VR at the time, and it was like people were using Google Cardboard in a hospital, looking at a heart, the heart doctors to save a kid. And, I felt like I was the biggest jerk, but I wrote back to my friend, I'm like, this is a complete Google PR piece. No doctor would ever be using cardboard for anything remotely accurately, and so it's very different. But it shows people, it opens the door. But between that and actual real use, I think you got to be careful.
Yes.
Yes. I just wanted to speak to the last question you guys touched on earlier about the piracy of games and putting them in arcades. Elliott had talked about wondering if something like laws are connected with the tech. You guys know what I do on video games, and I spoke to the American Bar Association's business law section last year with a couple of people from Boston VR and the general counsel of HappyGiant. And what we have found in our personal experience and in our scholarship is that the legal issues with VR remain largely the same as they do with conventional gaming. So as far as the enforcement of that, if an arcade steals your game, you're going to have like the same avenues that, say for example, WWE has if some people are accessing pay-per-view unauthorized. The big issue with that is going to be the sheer logistics of finding who the places are that are illegally using your game and hopefully seeing you.
Awesome. Thank you. Yes, the shades.
Now things that are completely mobile and constantly PlayStation or things like the Live and the Oculus. My question to you is basically, and I know my own system with a lot of people to get a feel for their reaction. Not only is it hilarious and awesome and finding fire for the other people but also one thing that I've also picked up on is that the level of fidelity and the reality of the experience is sometimes a hurdle that might almost be, because I hear a lot of times often that the sound is better quality than an optics, of course, are clearly a limiting factor, especially with the PSVR, but I'm thinking that it might also be a benefit that there is a certain level of fidelity difference between super hyperrealism for people that aren't quite accustomed to or used to it and are such an immersive experience to something that's a little more approachable like the PSVR that's got, it's good enough. It still puts you there. It does what it needs to do, and the focus is purely on the gameplay. You forget about the optics. If you're not a developer like the people in the room,
It's almost like flavors of ice cream, right? It's like, and genres of games and genres of movies and things like that. I think that the type of experience that you're going for and the feeling that you're trying to evoke in your audience, and picking your platform and technologies based on that is, yeah, that seems like a really reasonable thing.
So, so I think we have time for one more. I guess.
So, kind of a throwback. Remember Pokemon Go? Do you think, that trend is kind of blowing up overnight? Do you think that helped or hurt the consumers' interest and, involvement in VR and their understanding?
I can answer since I'm still playing Pokemon Go every day.
Me too.
So Pokemon Go, for those, I'm sure you guys are all over the news and stuff, but they have an AR feature for basically just you can play and take screenshots. And I think a lot of big tech sites picked up on this is a big AR game. This is why this game is successful. It's going to change the world. But it's actually kind of like a side feature for the game. Like I don't ever use it anymore. It's just a gimmick. It was just so they could, get all those news articles. The big thing about Pokemon Go was nostalgia and releasing at the right time and being accessible. So like all the people like me who played Pokemon back in the 90s are, a lot of people kind of dropped off from that kind of IP. And now, everyone has a phone and they're like, well, we still have this IP that's going strong in Japan and with other demographics. So like, let's bring it to the mass market again. Make it super simple, super accessible, and like hinge it on that nostalgia. Like, remember when you were a kid and you wanted to get Pokemon in real life in your backyard? Like, now you can. And I think that helped a little bit, but and I think it did kind of help bring AR to maybe like a wider audience of like this is a thing that exists. But in terms of game design, it was kind of like a side thing. It wasn't. I think they were kind of using it as a marketing ploy.
I mean, so having made an AR mobile game, and we announced ours before Pokemon Go came out, so we believed in like AR mobile gaming. But to your point, but I think there's like one factor you're missing. I mean, it was the perfect storm with the IP, but it was also a new type of game that mass public had never played before. But even though there were other location-based games, but no one had heard of Intrepid or whatever. So people, with the perfect IP, with a new type of game that got them to use their device in a new way. We're actually developing our own location-based platform right now because here we are a year later, right, since Pokemon, and sure, maybe you have to find the right IP to make up that, however much it made, $650 million in a year, but you would think other developers would have made similar experiences with bigger, smaller IP, and there literally has been practically nothing. And so that's why we're actually, as we're moving on from Hologrid and looking to make our next augmented reality game, we realized, wow, there's nothing out there, especially for Unity developers. There's one plugin that gives you the map, there's one but there's nothing that really pulls it all together. And so, and there are other companies working on this. So I think, that was like a blip, kind of like VR was like a few years earlier. We're going to see a lot more of those types of games with different IP. Might not be as big as Pokemon, but there's just too many cool ways to interact with the environment. And as AR gets better, which it will, it won't just be your Pokemon floating in the air. Grounded things will be coming out of the walls. That's the kind of stuff we'll see.
Awesome. Great. Well, so I think that's all the time we have for today. But there's another panel after this. So I want to thank all of you, thank all the panelists for being here. So if you have any questions, we'll be hanging out. So thanks, everyone.
We'll be showing Hologrid at Tango at 5:30, and you can buy the mobile version on Amazon. I forgot to mention that. And the Gear VR.
It's just another That's everything I can turn on to the panel. I think it's probably like 5 years.
Testing. Hi everyone. I just wanted to make an announcement. We're going to start our next panel at 5:30. So stay tuned. It is Beyond Entertainment, VR in Business. So feel free to stay around and listen to that awesome panel as well. Thank you.
All together and
Let me round up the others.
yeah, it's like no much experimentation. That's I haven't seen it. I have to check it out. There's something I did that was acting hard. This they did right over in Pileated, they did a demo of the bar using two spatial setting. Where do you work? I work for a marketing firm up there.
Whoever wants to. Whoever wants to play.
Running all the business. Nice to meet you. He had the big medical team. Yeah. No. All right. Hey, nice to meet you. Yeah. I'm very familiar with all of the talks. I spent a lot of time reading. I started like seeing yeah, like we go back every year. Yeah. I know. I've been in there more times. Sure. Yeah, maybe we can work out on what platform?
The original one
So you use probably around there. Okay.
But I can pop up YouTube. I'll show you.
Yeah. Do you have like YouTube videos or Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we gotta go demo our games. We're gonna be in the cafe, but I can write you too. Okay. Nice to meet you. No, I just gotta go set up our demo. You mean like a person is playing it and streaming to someone else? Well, that would be cool. Because here it's just after Facebook. I'm pretty sure you can just stream your VR game you're playing to Facebook live right now. So that they have. Characters, like what you were talking about, and that is like a real-time VR stream performance. Go to a website, pop on this. Yeah. Yeah. I see what you're saying. Sure. I mean, right. This is like a progressive. Yeah. Yeah. Games do that sort of side VR. So, yeah, that's possible. Didn't really take off. Eventually, it's like, so you don't have to download the and you play it in real time. They're online. But yeah, I see that. Like, Oculus 2 Right. Right. What do you do? I was trying to mention the electro they're working with electro. They first came out now that's like the future. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not an audio designer. Directors can have
You can set like the size of your like so maybe if you put yourself in a small space outline.
My name is Belle. Yeah. So my question is, what do you think about haptic feature? Haptic.
Oh, haptic.
Yeah, haptic. Yeah. What do you?
I actually talked to company Ultra Haptic. Haptics can mean a lot. Ultra Haptic.
They have stuff in cars, like where you can go like this. You don't actually have to touch it, but like you're moving a dial and you can get feedback and you feel it. So that's one kind, but like you need more like.
I mean more like a glove, and I give you like force feedback or vibration.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried like?
That's what the Ultra does, but without wearing a glove. Like you can feel the vibrations, but it's a different way of doing it.
Okay. Oh, so but you can feel like everything, but they do it using the sound.
Right. Exactly.
What's a
Ultra ULTRA haptics.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, look that up. You'll find it. They're out of CK.
Have you ever tried like other like haptic gloves or?
I've never tried it. I'd like to. I mean, they also have that new Oculus thing where like you're going to be able to grab stuff.
Yeah.
That's more because I've shown a lot of people the the controllers and they just don't like. It's hard for people to figure out how to use it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you use this button and this thing. It's like a whole demo just to teach them how to use the controller. That's why I usually show people stuff that aren't rely into the controllers at first. But yeah, no, there's like haptic suits though now.
Yeah.
And like stuff like the treadmills and you can walk and it's like, oh yeah. Have you ever seen the bird thing?
The thing that's surrounding you.
No, but you can lay down. It's called Birdly, and you can fly like a bird basically in VR. Yeah, and they like push wind in front of you. I've never done it. I've just read about it. That's another haptic technique.
So I asked a question because like I'm a student at Brown University and
my friend is runs he's like a VR artist in residence there. What's the VR lab called there? That's some cool name.
There are two VR labs at Brown. I forgot the name though, but it's like a white room and then there's like big screen.
I can't remember it. But Adam Bloomberg is this guy. He runs the VR lab or something.
About like the C, the guy?
I don't know if he's the guy, but he's a guy.
Ah, okay. Yeah. So me and my friend, like
Oh, no, yeah. I know you, yeah. I know you probably like exhibitions. Okay.
Yeah, me and my friend, we are developing the glove that give you force feedback. So we made one prototype like last summer, and we were able to like make a force feedback using one finger, but we weren't able to do it like in a single hand. So that was we tried to develop this summer. So it's like trying to figure out who will be our customer, like how realistic it should be. Yeah. I think the issue would be like how realistic it should be.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Send us an email if you do anything. I'd love to see it.
Thank you so much. Do you have like any name cards?
I do over there. Let me go grab one. I know this guy's been waiting.
Yeah.
I'll get you one. Hold on.
Thank you so much.
I've only been here for a while. I see your name come up, and I know you changed it.
Okay. Where do you?
I work in Osham, Pennsylvania. I know it seems kind of a weird connection, but I started a lot of lighting stuff, and now we're getting into and then I was looking for a CEO to take on projects.
Oh yeah. Hey, we do all kinds of stuff. Oh no, we're doing like you wouldn't believe. Yeah, educational stuff for all kinds of different industries really. Let me go grab you. I'll grab your card.
I didn't catch it. What did you
lighting. That's usually anything to do with lighting. So we do automotive and we're doing like smart building stuff. And so we're just getting involved in using augmented reality, virtual reality for lighting. Really, that's most people think how it's their better way of half an hour, so I'm pretty far too. I'm not
Cool. Well, yeah, definitely. We're interested. So.
Okay. Yeah. Technology. I haven't decided about a product development. I do some cycle.
Okay. Yeah. We can exchange information.
Yeah, I'm trying to get it more reality.
Hey, it happens all the time. Nice to meet you. Good luck. Keep me posted. Okay, take care.
But I wanted you guys to be
We're on the West Coast now.
Oh, yeah, is that right?
Yeah, there's not as much here.
That's in Spark.
It's for a couple deals.
Just make one for, I don't know. I might just
Yeah, it's, you're being over here. I'm gonna just charge this first, but I gotta drop it
It looks just like
I'm not really sure, but he worked in places like most of Southern California, San Fran. He kind of caught a little with my grandfather's son. They all required the cattle. This one, not even 4 seasons. This one, kept them in the market. It's like the first.
I'll double check.
Yeah, we can't pick up the wall.
Yeah.
Or let's get
I'm a hacker.
Yeah. Thank you.
Test. One, two.
All right, everyone, going to go ahead and get started. I'm Craig Herndon. I'm the lead organizer of Boston VR. So before we get started with our panel, we're just going to go through a few notes we have about Boston VR. And so
who here is not familiar about Boston Virtual Reality as an organization? Oh, wow. Awesome. That's cool. So we're a 501c nonprofit here in Boston dedicated to making VR technology and education available to the public. So that's the events like this is why we partnered with the Venture Cafe today to bring you this event, because we really want you to be able to come here and say, I don't know what VR, and find out what it is. Be able to come here and do demos. And if you're a developer, we'd really love you to bring your demos. If you're working in the industry, we'd love to come and talk at our events. We do monthly meetups. If you go to meetup.com, Boston Virtual Reality. So again, like, you can check us. Yeah, just for the beginning, when you guys can move out of the way, just so you can see it. So yeah, we have a Google group, which we use for volunteers. We're on Twitter, so Boston VR Meetup. You also find us on LinkedIn. We have a large organization team. So Jeff Jacobson here is the founder of Boston VR. So thank you. And so I'm currently the lead organizer, but Jeff Bale recently stepped down from that position. He's still on the board and very much involved. But we just want to say thank you to all our volunteers and everyone helping out. So right here in the Venture Cafe, about a week from now on June 5th, Lead Motion is coming. And they'll be giving away developer kits as well as discount codes. And if you also just want to see what they're doing, they are bringing tech that is not available to the public yet. So we'll have exclusive demos. So we recently started a podcast. So it's called the Virtuality Podcast. It's a collaboration between Boston Virtual Reality and Boston Augmented Reality. Again, if you're working in the industry and would like to be on our podcast, just info@bostonvr.org. Send us an email, and we'll get in touch with you and talk about, getting you on the show. And then lastly, we do have a Slack group. We also have a Steam group where we're trying to get people to do monthly events where we just get on and play VR together or play a certain game together. And the Slack, what we want it to be is if you are working in VR and want to get started, you can come in and ask for help and say, hey, I'm working on this thing, I don't know how to do it. We have plenty of VR devs in our community. We're the 6th largest VR meetup in the world with over 4,000 members. So we usually pull in 150 to 200 people at each event. So it's definitely something that if you're not a part of and you're in the Boston area, you should definitely check us out. So I'm just going to leave this slide up for the rest of the show. But now I'd like to go ahead and get into the panel itself. So VR, has caused quite a craze ever since Levine Palmer came out, and then was bought out by Facebook for $2 billion and put it on the map for a lot of people of, okay, what is this thing and how do I be a part of it, right? So if you do want to be a part of it, you can come Boston VR. And now a lot of what business is asking is, how does this affect my industry? So there are too many industries for us to cover in one evening, but we feel we have a fair representation this evening. So I'm going to go ahead and let each of our panelists introduce themselves and the industry they're a part of.
Thanks. Hi, so my name is Mike Festa, and I would say we're in the retail industry. I work for Wayfair, and I lead a team called Wayfair Next. That's essentially looking at visualization technologies like VR and AR to enhance the ability for customers to find products. And I'm also the Boston chapter president for the VR AR Association, which is essentially our global connection to other interesting cities that are working in this space. So as part of that organization, we basically partner with groups like Boston VR, Boston AR to promote local businesses globally and bring in opportunities. Anyway, in the retail segment, Wayfair is using this technology to essentially show a customer what a product could look like in their own home before they buy it. So we think of like online retail, not just furniture, but there's a lot of products that you like to be able to see volumetrically in 3D and see how much space it takes up, what it actually looks like, how it goes with your existing products or clothing. And VR and AR both offer kind of distinct but interesting opportunities for visualization of products in both settings, essentially.
Hello, I'm Jeffrey Jacobson. I've been doing VR for 25 years.
I got a PhD in it because the alternative was going to the military. So I dragged it out as long as I could. And I have to tell you, the good old days are right now, because the gear is good and it's cheap, and everybody can play, and that makes all the difference. That's why this is not going to evaporate, it's just going to get bigger. I could go on all night, but today for this panel, I'll be focused on construction and engineering, and how VR and AR can help. But this is the VR panel, so I'll focus more on the VR.
So I don't know if I have that much to say right off the bat, but I'm Gina the student, and I work over at. Yeah, hello. Sorry, maybe I just need to keep listening. So I work at Aerospace, which is an architecture firm in downtown Boston, and I'm leading the VR and AR research department over there. And we are looking at ways we can use VR and AR as both a presentation tool and a design tool.
Hi, my name is Philippe Quentin. As you can hear from my accent already, I'm coming from quite far away. So I'm coming from Switzerland, but I'm spending my sabbatical here in Boston, and what I brought with me is basically a VR application for the medical field. So what we do, in contrast to the competition or to the other researchers in this field, we don't concentrate only on teaching, but actually we can visualize in real time real patient data. Because what you find on the Steam shop, for example, are really good applications for teaching, but they all are based on models. These models have been derived from data sets, but not from real patients. In our case, we can basically take a CAT scan and then visualize this patient data within a matter of seconds in a VR room, so that the surgeon can basically look at this data, prepare for the surgery, look where are all body pieces. And I invite you for a demo, and afterwards make this shameless plug.
Yeah, go for it.
It's basically when you get out of the elevator, there's a glass door just next to you. So it's basically on the far end of this building. You will find me there. All right. So the next step, I just want everyone to kind of go through what brought you to virtual reality in the first place. What drove your interest, and how did you get to this stage?
Okay. Yeah, great question. So I've been, I guess, a lifelong fan of VR since I was a kid. I remember reading about, sci-fi, or, there was the Virtual Boy and all these interesting, I guess, conceptual ideas about VR. Like The Matrix is one of my favorite movies. These ideas of like a virtual world that you can kind of interact with and be limitless and change whatever you want. And so I've been kind of, got recently following the hardware back in 2012. After seeing John Carmack demo Palmer Luckey's headset at E3. And so I reached out, via the online, interwebs, and started talking to Palmer about the stuff he was working on. And he was looking to raise money. This is before they did the Kickstarter. And I basically sent him $500 as an anonymous PayPal gift, which a lot of people cautioned me against doing. But I was like, I'm sure it's fine. It's the internet. He's gotta be a good guy. It worked out well, and so I was one of the first 20 backers of the Rift before they did the Kickstarter, and I guess the rest is history.
Well, back in the Jurassic period, it was 1990. I was hacking code at Honeywell for operating systems, and I decided that I needed to do something more visual and more human. And so I just lived on the road for a year, and one of the first people I ran into was Michael Benedict in the architecture school at University of Texas. He was one of the leading lights of VR at the time. So he turned me on to the whole idea, and the rest of my journey was finding a place to do it. And I settled on the University of Pittsburgh Information Science Department. And from there, I did research at Carnegie Mellon on using VR for cultural heritage and historical recreations, and involved with museums and so forth. So I did that right up until about 3 years ago. And it was great. It was a very academic career. And then I saw the Oculus Rift, and I knew everything was going to change. So I got involved with Boston VR and the early scene here, and decided to get into consulting. And I've been sort of marketing myself toward the construction industry during that time. But I'll work with anybody, as long as it's VR and AR.
So actually, we're fairly new to the VR and AR industry, I guess. So we started using VR as a visualization tool for architecture, which is pretty common in this area, at least for architects. And we slowly started to realize that it's just a completely impactful tool for interior designers and exterior designers, but we found that the best place to start with our programming is with interior designers. So we've created a couple of programs where where architects are able to go into the space and actually design, kind of similar to what you guys do, which is you can add furniture from the reps we have, you can change materials on the fly, you can design a physical space and then kind of go through iterations of that space and see what your options are. We've also started studying how we can use it as a presentation tool, which is a little bit different than a visualization tool. It's kind of a better way for us to interact with our clients, especially clients that don't necessarily come into the office to have a meeting with us. We can have a meeting with somebody, point out and talk about some elements of our design, and they don't even have to come into the office, which is really amazing. And especially because we are architects and we work a lot with 2D plans, it takes a while for us to render, and even when we render, to actually show it as the office. And so like having the ability to talk to our clients through our designs on the fly, or just like quickly do a rendering to give people an understanding what we're designing, so they're not just looking through sets of 2D drawings, is really amazing. And actually this summer we're going to start bringing data sets into our VR to see how we can kind of change city planning and basically look at how people use and interact in our space.
Well, we've been doing AR from a research point of view for the medical doctors since about 6-8 years. But these were mainly tablet-driven, Android tablet-driven applications, so AR but in 2 dimensions. And to be honest, I never really believed in the hype of VR. This was mainly because I never had any glasses on, so I've never really experienced it, the 3D world in VR. But I had this nice application from a PhD, from a student actually from ETH in Zurich, and he showed me amazing videos. What he did he built cities in this video out of blocks. It was just a video that he created, and then he was throwing like spaghetti at it, and he calculated all the collisions. And I thought this must be a genius in GPU programming, so why not trying to enter the virtual reality world with him? So it was basically just because he applied in my lab. I basically started doing VR about a little more than a year ago, and now I'm completely convinced of it. This will definitely be the future. Awesome. So next, so whoever raised their hand first, we'll go to them. So outside of your specific industry, what are some use cases for VR that you think work very well in the enterprise, kind of either from automotive to defense or training, anything like that that you can think of?
Right now, in the modern wave of VR, you've got the gaming industry has jumped on it and is actually making money. And that's fairly normal. Most new technologies are used as a toy first. And then you've got this broad swath of industries that are experimenting with it. But the automotive, military aerospace industry has been using VR in a big way for the last 15, 17 years. Right around the year 2000, they realized that they could use VR to simulate an automobile or a jet engine. You could see how things move, how the person's body fits in, where the controls are. And when you're going to make 10,000 cars, it doesn't matter what you spend on the first one. That's how they could afford to use these multi-million-dollar caves, mostly caves because the head mounts just really weren't that great at the time. And the military, of course, has been using VR for training forever. And the construction industry has always wanted to, but every building's different, so they just couldn't put a line item in the budget of that size until now. Now they can use head mounts and so forth.
Awesome. So the next thing, I kind of want to direct this one at Mike. So in e-commerce, so when you think of virtual reality, a lot of people think of immersion and presence as being the big things and being able to feel empathy. So how can you use those aspects of virtual reality to drive, in your case, consumers to interact with your brand differently?
Yeah, totally. So one of the things that we kind of differentiate between technologies internally, like AR and VR, AR is kind of this, I want to buy one thing and I want to see how it fits. I can see it on the screen, or I can see it in a headset. That's fine, it's in a real space. With VR, we think there's an opportunity to basically reimagine the space. So if you're trying to plan a new living room or dining room, bedroom, etc., you can basically clean out that space. We're working with some scanning technology to basically scan your room, import it into VR. You get a nice clean slate. And I think one of the kind of undervalued values of VR is the social connection. Today's VR, most of the demos are largely focused on isolating experiences. You're in another place, it's very cool, you're playing a game. But there's not a lot of these kind of social mixed reality like presence demos yet, and I think that's kind of the next wave of VR that's really exciting. Because for us, for example, we sell home furnishings, and for a lot of consumers, when they're making those big purchases, they lack the confidence to buy an entire set of products because they don't necessarily know that they go together, or they're going to look good, or their friends are going to like it. And all of a sudden, if we have this opportunity, this new medium to kind of co-design with either a professional designer, with your friends, with your living mates, whoever spouses, friends, etc., you have this opportunity all of a sudden to get feedback on your design and kind of turn it into a game. A lot of the demos, when people try our demos, people usually say like, "Oh, this is just like The Sims, but I feel like I'm there." And that's kind of what we're going for. We want people to feel like they're having this kind of playful experience, yet they're actually doing some productive work, and they're feeling more confident about what they're going to buy, sight unseen, typically over the internet. Now it's no longer sight unseen. You feel like you were there. You feel like you're experiencing the space, and if you can do that socially, then you get that kind of confidence and buy-in from professionals and friends alike.
Anyone else want to add to that?
From a medical point of view, actually there are several opportunities where VR can help as well as AR. And this starts with the education of the students, because currently they're basically educated with atlases. They have some cadavers that they dissect, which gives them 3D impression of where the different structures are in the future. So I'd also like to switch to the VR where they really see the anatomy in 3 dimensions. But another option is also in surgical planning. This has been done as of today mainly on 2D screens. So they look at the data, flat 2D screens from different views. But now with the VR, we can really change this. It's a lot easier for them to basically estimate what is the distance of the tumor from the skull when they really see it in 3D. What is the best site or the location to access this tumor, rather than estimating or building up a 3D model in the brain when looking at multiple 2D screens. So this is basically the first target that we are aiming at. But as soon as the AR glasses have caught up, actually I'm desperately waiting for my Meta 2 glasses, because then we'll also switch to we'll also use our rendering technology on AR applications. We would really like to show the surgery, during surgery, basically the body of the patient overlaid onto the patient. I think this will drastically change it, but there are certain key factors that are still missing that we still have to develop, but I'm pretty sure we are very close to getting this into the OR pretty soon.
And Katrina, how do you feel this VR and using it, how's that changed the relationship with your clients that you work with?
Well, it's been varied. There have been people who are very reluctant to put on the headset just because they are finding it's a completely new piece of technology. They are kind of this old way of interacting with us. But I find that people who kind of do take what is in their mind a risk really find that they're able to just very quickly interpret what we're trying to give to them. They can help us make decisions because we can have those conversations a little bit more readily than we had before. And I just think accessibility has definitely been increased because it's kind of weird to send people like a bunch of drawings and like have them look through it and kind of make decisions or come back with comments. But if we can give somebody just like a 3D representation that they could see, it's very easy for them to like make judgments, give us comments, give us feedback, and have us talk through a design.
Well, one thing that underlies what all of us have been saying is, and what you just got through saying is, it's so much, instead of taking 3D data in the computer, turning it into 2D, and then having to rebuild it in your head, just communicate it directly in 3D to your 3D brain. And then you can interact with it. And that's where it really comes alive. In the construction, for example, you've got an architect. You have the construction manager and the architect. They get to see the entire design. But then the construction manager has to rope in the electricians, the plumbers, the security system people, the HVAC people, the structural engineers. All these people have to design three-dimensional subsystems, and it all has to fit together, and it's a nightmare. And being able to see that in 3D and put the puzzle pieces together in 3D is just a huge help.
And then the next thing would just be, there are a few ethical concerns with virtual reality. So as soon as we start adding things like eye tracking, it changes how brands can advertise to the person, and you can then see how long they've looked at an advertisement in VR and know that, and then be able to report back that, hey, so now you have this whole like what is happening to my data, and so how are you managing personal data that you're collecting or may end up collecting that you foresee could be collected? So I'd really lean on your mic here because you have your customers.
Yeah. So I guess I'll speak for as much as I know. I don't have a whole lot of insight into exactly how the customer data is treated and protected, but I know generally as an engineering department we really value the aggregate data because we can make a lot of informed decisions based on having that information. And you'll see that I think as a society we've kind of realized that there's a benefit. Like for the last 15 years or so, people have been using Google as this search algorithm, and over time it's gotten smarter and better. And I think people don't necessarily understand how their data is always being used, but generally it's to inform search algorithms or advertisements and product placements so that you end up with something that's more personalized and hopefully something that you would prefer. And I can't speak for everybody, but I know personally I prefer seeing advertisements that are relevant than things that are, just a bunch of crap on the side. Like, I'd rather see something that I'd be interested in, not necessarily purchasing immediately, but something that catches my eye. And so from the Wayfair standpoint, we want to drive personalization as much as we can. We sell 7 million different products, and navigating that many choices becomes like too much. So when customers search for things, the more you interact with the site, essentially the more we build a profile. And again, these are anonymous profiles, so we don't care that John Doe likes sofas in a modern style. We care that you like a specific taste because then we can give you more relevant search results. And so the value of the site is going to be higher, I think, if we give you a custom tailored experience that allows you to see products that are more relevant rather than search through like 10,000 different couches that may or may not fit your style, we can narrow those selections automatically and kind of transparently to the top maybe 100 products that we think fit your category of style based on similar products that you may have purchased in the past or things that you're interested in. And so I think it's one of those like fuzzy lines where the data is really powerful, and generally as a society we've opted into using and giving away our data with so many services because we're getting better service out of it. But at the same time, like I caution us as a society to keep track of what exactly we are giving up. And as companies, I think we need to be more transparent in we're using this data for this express purpose and nothing else, or we're not reselling your information. You know, that's one thing. What Wayfair can say is we don't resell information. We're not trying to like, you know, give it to credit card companies so that they can figure out where to make structures. We don't care about that. We care about customer experience and basically making that choice of selection more personalized, especially in the home where you really want to buy something that's unique and custom tailored to yourself, but it's often hard to find words to physically describe a specific style or taste that you happen to like, whereas these algorithms can figure it out through, you know, your essential browsing history. So again, it's one of these things where it's like two sides of the same coin, where on one hand it's really scary, on the other hand it's really powerful. And again, as a society, we should just be aware of the choices we make to use these services.
So that's actually really interesting. Since we are moving into some data research this summer and towards the end of the year, and especially thinking about only using it internally and like what does that actually mean? Because like if you think about it, the way I think about data, especially user data, is like we can make as many iterations of something as we want. Like I could sketch all day and think that I've got the best answer for something, but until you have input, until you have somebody else's opinions or ideas, you don't really know like what you're bringing to society. You don't know what you're handing out. You're just handing out what you think is the best idea. And so kind of getting an understanding of like en masse, especially for something like city planning, and just kind of breaking it down, getting things more ergonomically correct, like having things be more minimalist, being more simplistic, is incredibly powerful. And having those data sets to use, I think, will just kind of further our work. And I guess it's really the product you're delivering. We're never trying to tailor something to sound like maliciously. Like it's definitely all being done with good intent, and I suppose all of our data will just be kept internally. It's just the product that's being delivered.
In the medical field, of course, the patient data is always a big issue that we have to be aware of. From that respect, there will not be big changes because the data will stay in-house. We don't get planned to show or to offer also this virtual reality used to the patients, because at least the surgeons, they currently don't want it because they feel that it takes them a lot of time to explain to the patients what they actually want to do. And they told me they only have like 50 minutes to explain to the patient the surgery, and they don't want to explain for 5 minutes what virtual reality glasses are and how you have to don them. But I'm sure this will change in the future, that patients can also look at their data directly. But this is currently not the plan. But the eye tracking, which is supposed to come for the new HTC glasses, this would be very helpful for us also to optimize the usage of the device so that we can fine-tune how we offer surgeons the tools that they can operate. We will mainly use this for optimizing the user experience.
That was almost exactly my point. That in engineering, if you're talking about an automobile or an airplane, you want to see how people crowd into it and crowd off, or how you're going to operate a device. The user information is really important. Ideally, you want to put sensors in the device in the car that's going to give you real-time information on how people are using stuff. You run into privacy. You also run into a temptation to make the systems adaptive, so that if the car decides that you're having trouble seeing things, or you're having trouble, I'm making this up right now. You know, if you're having trouble reaching something, it might adjust something on the dashboard or adjust the acceleration parameters of the car. Extremely dangerous, you know, because adaptive interfaces are used more likely, more often in virtual interfaces, and they're really easy to get wrong because people have a lot of individual differences, and then you have to get to the more privacy.
There's also a learning curve from our side that we're currently going through, usability-wise, because for example, surgeons ask me they would like to outline the tumor shape in these data sets. And then they asked me, we also have like 2D screens in our virtual room. So they wanted me to be able to draw on these 2D screens. But then you basically waste the third dimension that you have in virtual reality. It took me quite some time to realize myself that we have to think of completely new concepts. We shouldn't really copy what we do currently on a 2D flat screen, how we outline a specific shape. We shouldn't just copy that into the 3D world, but we should actually think of completely new concepts, how they can outline the tumors so that they can better visualize it. And this is a learning curve that we have to go through. We have to develop new concepts in this regard as well.
A construction manager once told me that what keeps him up at night is that he gets an operating room built, and the surgeon walks in and says that sink is in the wrong place. Move it a couple feet over, and it's a disaster. You could avoid that with VR.
So I think that segues nicely into what are some of the design challenges that you've been facing while developing a VR enterprise application?
Yeah, I can start with that. So internally, we're currently working on a design tool for our basically people that worked in the studio, the photo studio, traditionally would place objects and they'd crinkle things and they'd set them bed just right and get the look and feel so that it would look, you know, presentable and nice, like a catalog shoot. And as we're moving from physical real world objects into digital objects, one of their challenges is training them to use tools like 3D Studio Max, where they're using a keyboard and mouse and they're not used to the 3D concepts. So we've created an internal training tool that uses VR that essentially allows them to place the objects physically the same way they would in the real world. And it's been interesting, just even simple, or what we think might be a simple interface, like, oh, point here, click, or, you know, pull this thing into the world, isn't as intuitive as we might, as designers, think. And so I think that goes back to like an interesting point or important point, is that as you're developing, especially in VR, you need to have that feedback loop with customers. Make sure you get the people that are actually going to use your product to try it out as early and as often as possible, because you're going to find things that you wouldn't have guessed. And it makes sense in retrospect, and it's usually quick changes early on when you're developing, you know, some fancy UI, but if you find out at the very end when you're trying to ship your product that, oh, no one knows how to use it without a 20-minute tutorial, all of a sudden you have to go back to the drawing board and your release date gets you know, pushed out. So generally, the sooner you can get it to people, the better. Even if you're embarrassed by it, just get it out there. You know, there's no such thing as too early to test. Yeah, pretty much.
One of the challenges, I know at least 4 construction companies in the area that are now using VR to visualize their building designs. And it's great when you want to put on the helmet and get a sense of the space, but then you're cut off from everything else. You want to be able to look at your blueprints and your outside view of the models and all your other information at the same time. So that's a real paradox there. Augmented reality can solve some of that. One alternative is to use like a cave, because you're in a dome or something, and then you can bring all your other toys with you, so you can look back and forth. Another alternative is to use something like the HoloLens to do VR, not AR, but VR. So it's not the device. VR takes you somewhere else, and you can do that with the HoloLens. You just can only see, you're seeing the VR overlaid over the physical environment, and people handle that remarkably well.
So I would say basically the main challenge, it all comes down to time.
and how much time we have to work on these things, because I find it really important for us to understand what our industry needs. So I'm continuing to work in architecture as well as doing the VR and AR side of everything. So just to get an understanding of like how architects are changing, like basically bringing what we're making to them and basically getting their feedback and seeing how we can change our programs to be more interactive or more easily effective.
Apart from the challenges that have already been mentioned, we faced other challenges as well, more from the technical side. Because if you think that the CAT scan basically is a CD full of data, and our main problem was to load this CD, or this roughly 400, 500 megabytes of data, and then we basically calculate the images out of it in real time 180 times per second, so that we can really show it in a virtual reality room. And the GPUs, they're not really made for this so far. I mean, they're quite good at it, but they're really made to map texture triangles and texture them. So we had to work a little bit around and to find out what is the best way so that we can crunch this huge amount of data in real time so that we can use it in the VR.
Yep, so next I kind of want to discuss briefly the different kind of startups that are out there and how are they getting success. So one I want to shout out to is Alchemy Labs, who was recently bought out by Google. So Alex Schwartz, their CEO, came out of Boston VR before moving out west. So congratulations to him. We've invited him to come to Boston later this year, and he has accepted. So be on the lookout for an announcement on when that'll be. It'll be late this year, probably sometime after October. But they're a content studio, but they do also have some mixed reality tech that I think also interested Google. So it's not just the content that they're creating, but also that they're developing a platform for others to build content and create content with. And we also have the $502 billion that went into Improbable, which is a student from MIT moved out to London. So again, like a lot of these startups, they are coming out of Boston and moving elsewhere. So a bit of a challenge for Boston is how do we keep those people here? Because they do start at MIT and Harvard and then move elsewhere right now. But what have you seen and why do you think certain companies have been successful so far, and what aspects have they used of VR that has gotten them to the point where they're doing it full time, they have several millions in funding? So would anyone like to take this one first?
I'll start by giving a shout out to Verzoom, a local company that's working on the virtual reality exercise space. And they get a pretty cool bike system where you basically, wear a VR headset, but you're transported to another space. And initially, you think, oh, biking, okay, so it's like the thing at the gym where I'm on a bike. And it's actually different. They take you to another space, so you're driving a tank or you're riding a horse or a unicorn. And it makes it like take the exercise out of the game, and it feels like you're playing a game and having fun. And so I think they did a nice job, like kind of finding this niche within a niche, and they've done a good job of creating content that, again, it's a platform play. Like they created this initial, like, here's what you could do with our system, and now opening it up to other developers to take advantage of. And I think, they're still like in their early stages, but they've been able to, they have a successful team or a team of people that have been previously successful. That helps a lot when you're starting a new company. Having good, people, obviously, you want employees that are talented, and it's an interesting space right now because I feel like a lot of the startup money is out west, and in Boston, I think we have an opportunity to kind of continue to grow our, especially VR and AR startup scene. And generally in Boston, like we're growing our startup scene. Over the last few years, there's been more things like, like the Mass Challenge, for example, and opportunities for startups to work in spaces. I think like we work or here, out of, Venture Cafe, Venture, CSE, yeah. And so I think it's, it's like a startup in any space. Like you're going to have challenges around raising money and getting people to believe in your product. VR is no different. In fact, maybe it's harder because you have to get people to believe in the technology too. But demos can go a long way. And again, having a good team is probably the number one.
Yeah, I guess I'll give my shout out to Neurable, which is a neurorobotics company in Cambridge, and they're just doing some really awesome stuff. Basically, it's a little bit of, I wouldn't say machine learning, but basically what it's doing is they're taking your EEG and neural networking and just translating it into like moving robots and playing video games in virtual space. It's just really awesome.
Probably one of the issues that companies are moving around quite a lot is that VR, you just basically take your laptop and your glasses with you and they can work basically anywhere. There's a company from ETH in Zurich, I don't really know its name, they're also working in training VR environments for surgeons, and they basically moved to Bali. They enjoy the sun there, and they work at night. I don't really know their time schedule, but they really enjoy the beach and work, and they moved to company there because we just work anywhere. The glasses are light, they're cheap, laptops are not too expensive either. But what the main difficulty is, and probably one of the reasons why some companies move around, is talent. You really need good talent. I'm actually surprised because at MIT and Harvard they have lots of good talents here, so I'm really amazed why companies move to London.
So was the ones I was referring to, it's the students who are there and want to go out to the West Coast or go out to London. So they start their company here as a student, but then they're like, oh, I've been here all of my college and now I want to go elsewhere. So they're not really looking to hire as much as to just be in a different location, is what I've seen.
I think there's also a challenge around funding too. Like, if we can continue to bring more funding into the region, that'll continue to help people stick around.
I'd like to give a shout out to Amadeo Michelli and his startup, Symmetry. He wrote his own game engine, which allows you to sketch in 3D, but for motion, for moving objects. It's like SketchUp, but for things that move. It's brilliant. He's giving classes in the area. Another one, which is almost a start, our own Jono Forbes was one of the major leading lights of Boston VR. And he created this application, Archaean World Builder, which was a way for people to build VR worlds without having to be a programmer. And then he took a job with Unity, helping them build their an aspect of Unity that does exactly that. And it's not bad for a guy who never went to college.
Yeah, so we're going to go to another topic if someone else wants to say anything else on this one. Okay. So next we kind of want to talk about the interface between virtual reality and augmented reality. So if a business makes a decision and becomes a VR company, or they brand themselves as a VR company, can they switch to augmented reality? Or what is the difference between the two? And just kind of show how these two overlap as well.
Well, the difference between VR and AR is not the hardware. It's how you tell the story in 3 dimensions. So virtual reality takes you somewhere else. You're on the moon, you're in an architectural design, you're on Mars, wherever. And you're going to be aware of the world around you. If you're using something like the HoloLens, you're going to see a lot of the world around you. But the story is that you're somewhere else. Augmented reality keeps you where you are, but adds something to your environment. Like it adds a fake X-ray vision so you can see inside your patient, or it adds furniture to the room. And if you have a company that is solving a problem, well, I guess it kind of depends. If you have a product it's going to be VR or AR, it would be kind of hard to switch that over. Unless your product is usable in either one, then you're in good shape. If you're selling a service, then you would have to recalibrate the service you're offering, because the narratives are very different.
in the medical field, this is mainly driven by the application. So in the surgical room, of course, they rather want to have AR rather than VR because they want to see the patient. They have to see the patient, and seeing the patient through a camera mounted on top of the VR system is not good enough. Surgeons, they really want to have direct access and direct visibility of the patient, however, with overlaid information. And in training, medical training, surgical training, their VR is perfectly fine. So in the medical field, it's not rather a question of, often we don't have a choice whether we want to do VR or AR, but it's driven by the application itself.
And just kind of continue on that theme, do you see the two industries competing with each other, or do they more complement each other?
I would say they absolutely complement each other. I guess if you're starting a company, maybe you should do both. That's probably the real answer. But definitely, I mean, what in the future we're going to be walking around with glasses that either they show us something overlaid onto our reality, or they completely take us out of our reality into a virtual reality. But right now, I see them completely complementary. I mean, you use the same tools to build for either one, with some small variations. The actual headsets. But yeah, I mean, you can use them in completely different ways if you're, trying to promote yourself or people interested in the product.
Yeah, I agree. It's pretty much a spectrum. AR and VR are kind of the same thing. It's one on one extreme, and then kind of mixed reality is a term that's thrown out there for the kind of overlap. But yeah, again, it goes back to content, and that's one of the things that actually half my team is focused on at Wayfair is creating 3D content. I think that's an interesting space that people don't necessarily appreciate when they think about getting into AR or VR for the company, is what content are you going to put there. And if you're naturally working in CAD or design, then it's fine. Or you have CT scans that are created out of 3D data. Then you have data, and the problem is not creating it, it's visualizing it. In Wayfair's case, we sell 7 million products, and we started this team with 0 3D models of these products. I actually assumed that a lot of stuff was designed in CAD, but it turns out that the majority of things, stuff that we sell, is designed like in the field, in the shop. Like they adjust different saws and change things out every cycle. And so the product's like more organic, and you might cast some molds. So it's not designed in the computer. So for our standpoint, it's like, how do we get that content created? And so we're using a technique called photogrammetry, which is where they get 3D content from photos. And I think that's an interesting thing to be aware of, is how do I create 3D content for AR and VR? Because you pretty much need 3D content. Showing 2D content in VR, it can be done, but it's not that compelling. It's like you want the 3D content because you're in a new space.
And do you want to go ahead and plug your nonprofit photogrammetry?
Yeah, sure. So, just for fun, I've been scanning my town of Wakefield, and so I have a site, makefield.org, that is basically tools that I'm building, and I gotta update it one of these days. But I've been basically using a drone to take photos aerially of the space, creating 3D content from that, and then writing VR tools essentially just filling 2D across. So if you want to find out more about that,
so now we want to move over to audience questions. So if you can line up in the middle here, but I'll go ahead and walk over you first. But for the next questions, you can line up in the middle. We'll do it that way.
Yeah, thanks very much for all the very interesting information. I was just wondering about what's the state of the art. I've heard a little bit about force feedback gloves, etc. So what about interactivity with AR, VR? So whether it's cutting through a membrane on a body, or whether it's pushing open a door, or whether it's feeling this quality level versus that quality level. Can you say something about what's the state of the art of haptics feedback?
I can quickly comment on something that I'm working on. It's still a little experimental, but there's a tablet I got on Kickstarter. I'm actually waiting for it to arrive any day now. That it's pressure sensitive, And so we're working on an experiment where you can basically take an overlay of different fabric swatches and physically feel the sample, but then interact with the product. So if you want to change like the couch and what it looks like and how it feels, you physically reach out and touch that swatch and it'll change it. So that's something we're working on for that kind of tactile, like what does the cloth feel like?
Force feedback devices have been around for a long time, and in terms of just being able to feel things, like kind of like gross user level, they work. But there aren't too many that are available at a reasonable price yet. On the high end, I think you might answer this better. Is it good enough to do surgery yet? I'd be amazed.
Well, there are surgical training systems available, but they generally are not based in VR rooms. We are working together with a company on this, but it's still difficult to simulate the haptic feedback of hard objects because the bandwidth of these robots is not. There's actually a robot behind it that controls the device. It's not yet good enough. And with respect to having like a skull flying in mid-air and you would like to touch it, this is something we are not anywhere close to solutions for this.
Actually, let me just go one other shout out to a Boston company called Tactile. They're developing this. It's technology for both recording materials as well as delivering that to like a hand. And they've got two different demos. One, it goes in your fingertip and it's kind of like the same motor in a cell phone that vibrates when you get a message. As you interact with a product or something in VR, it like starts shaking like the more you touch it. And so it actually gives you this interactivity that's pretty interesting. And if you actually put your finger inside the product, which of course you're free to do, it squeezes and vibrates enough that it's uncomfortable, so you actually want to pull back. And that's kind of their VR solution. They also have been using like a pen that is kind of a 3D design tool that can simulate surfaces, again, based on this kind of feedback variation. And their kind of secret sauce is they've got a roll brush that they put on a texture. They digitize the information, I guess, the way they explain it the same way our fingertips digitize and read a surface. And then they feed that back through the device. So the pen-based device, you can basically tell the difference between like silk and like cotton, something, pretty sensitive. It's not quite there where it's our level of touch, but it's getting there, and they're an interesting company to follow.
Hi, so my question is to the interior decorators and Wayfair, the furniture, even though my background is more in the life science, biotech. Often I find myself interested in buying a new piece of furniture, but I'm not sure it's going to fit with my house or whatever. What's the state of the art of digitizing your environment and somehow capturing the end user's aesthetic preferences? So is there some open source libraries for like aesthetic constraint solvers or something that would give me permutations of existing furniture that would fit my preferences? Let me kind of yes or no those and machine learns more about me and tries to fit my budget.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I'm not sure of any specific like open source projects that do that. I know that internally, like that's stuff that Wayfair is trying to develop. As far as like state of the art scanning, it depends. Like, so there's some challenges around getting hardware to people. So the Matterport scanner is an interesting tool for like real estate. Right now, people place it in their space, you move it around, and it creates a 3D scan of the environment. Those maps like are not perfect, but they're good enough for doing mixed reality, where you have like a VR environment that you see the physical world that you're in, and then you can interact with it. So that's kind of a high-end scanner. I think for $3,600, and you need a subscription, so it's not really a viable consumer alternative. However, with some of these technologies like Google Tango, somewhere one of these Tango devices, and after I'll be giving demos of Tango in our AR app. But strictly for VR, you can use that type of sensor to scan the room, and it gives, it's not perfect, but it gives you a rough approximation of the space. Google's been working on technology that'll give you like so you can get rid of the existing sensor, and that's one of these attachment points that we've been kind of changed for a while. Occipital is another scanner that plugs into an iPad, and that does a pretty good job of like room reconstruction as well. It's not quite like mass market, but it's like a $300 add-on to an iPad. There's a lot of iPads out there. they've been getting a lot of good use out of it. They even created a mixed reality headset that has their sensor on it, and it basically feeds into an iPhone 7. So generally, those are the best things that we've seen. And I'm hoping that it gets better and better, because we really want it for VR to be able to bring in the real space in a convincing manner and a cleaned up manner.
So a lot of stuff in this area is about detail. You have augmented reality, where you add detail to something that you're actually looking at, or interior design, and you go into a room and say how many different objects can I put in this room, and move them around and look at them. So it's about taking one experience and making it as detailed as possible for someone to interact with. But a lot of what people do when they, a lot of what people do or are looking to do with something like VR potentially is make decisions. So what they actually need is access to multiple experiences, because they need to decide between them. Do you guys know of any work that's related not so much to adding detail or creating detail for a single experience, but rather taking multiple experiences or multiple rooms with different configurations of furniture in them and distilling them into their most salient differences, and helping people understand how things are similar and different rather than just making one thing as accurate as possible?
I think what you're talking about is decision support using data and interpreting that data in a reasonable way. And if the goal is aesthetic, it would be really hard to make an algorithm to do that. It's possible. That algorithm would have to be built by an artist, I would think, an architect. There is one example that's a similar idea. It's a virtual Egyptian temple that I built. My team and I worked with an Egyptologist over the course of 2 years, and it's still on our old website, publicvr.org, and it's built as an exemplar of an ancient Egyptian temple, having all of the key characteristics that temples of the late period, the 2,000-year period, had. But all those features are simplified, made more readable, so that it's an exemplar, an idealized example of an Egyptian temple, but not a representative of any particular temple, because if we represented a particular temple, then people wouldn't know the differences between something that's really basic to an Egyptian temple versus something that was just particular to that one. So, and that was a teaching tool, a learning tool.
And we'll move on to our last question.
First of all, just thanks again for coming out here and do this. It's been very interesting to hear so many different industries and how they're going to be impacted by VR and AR. And along those lines, Google just recently made some pretty exciting announcements. Mike, I think you alluded to a little bit of that. Facebook earlier this year also came out pretty strong with AR, much stronger than I think a lot of people expected. So can you just talk a little bit about with those advancements and that significant amount of funding that's coming into this space through Google and Facebook, where you see your individual industries, let's say 12 months to 2 years from now?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm really excited about mass adoption of this technology for a number of years, especially like as someone that's working on it day to day. It seems like everybody should have this now, and it really takes time for mass adoption to happen. So announcements with what Facebook is doing to make AR more accessible devices is encouraging and exciting for us, because all of a sudden our average customer is going to have access to the technology. When we think about specialty devices like Tango, I think long term that's going to play out as people upgrade their phones and hardware gets better. We're going to have devices that are more capable. But from a software standpoint, like things like that Google and Facebook and hopefully Apple are working on, we're going to be able to get this kind of backwards compatibility, I hope, to really get the software out to people, even if the experience isn't necessarily as compelling as like Tango, which knows like millimeter accuracy in space. You look at what Pokemon Go did, and it was widely successful, even though it's debatable whether or not it's really augmented reality or not. But it got people thinking about it, and I think just having people understand that there's value is going to drive developers to make content, which is going to drive users to want to buy the phone and the hardware and upgrade and get the best experience. So I think I'm excited over the next couple of years that first we're going to see software, we're going to see AR and VR on phones and devices you plug into a headset, and then more and more standalone experiences, wearables that get lighter and smaller and more comfortable.
So I actually had a really amazing opportunity to be at Google I/O this year, where they were making some of those announcements, and I got to speak with some of the people over at Google and just kind of told them what we were doing in our industry and over at Arrow Street. And what it seems, the direction they seem to be taking AR and VR right now is really kind of either into entertainment or into sales. So they're not focusing as much on how to use it to design. And I think what's going to be really important is for each industry that is kind of tailoring VR and AR to their needs. I think those industries are really powerful for people like Google and maybe not Facebook, but I don't really know. But definitely powerful for people like Google to either take a look at those companies or work with them.
I think we really have to be aware of that these companies, they only make these developments possible. The big companies actually made it for the gaming industry, which was a big driver for this technology. Now we are basically taking this technology that has been developed and trying to apply it to niche markets. So we are really grateful for their development, but they also listen to us. For example, next week I will meet the very high figure of HTC because they would like to have feedback from the medical point of view. What are our requirements? They also are interested in our feedback, how to develop the products further. So, but the really big drivers were these companies that have already been mentioned, and they make this technology so cheap that everybody can use it at home.
I just want to thank everyone for coming out and to thank our awesome panelists. And for more events like this, just go to bostonvr.org and check out our meetup page. And again, listen to if you want to hear more in depth, just listen to our podcast, the Virtuality Podcast. Be a part of our community, join our Slack channel. If you go to our meetup page, some of the old discussions have links to all of it, as well as the links on bostonvr.org. So thank you.
See you, man. Yeah, what have you been up to?
Crazy, exciting in the VR.
What work?
I'm actually just a business teacher. For like a video assistant. I do research
I just did this one yesterday.
Yeah, I just started using Roundme last week.
Yeah, but I figured out how to convert the renderings that come out of Revit, the panoramic rendering from Revit, convert it into the projection that Roundme needs. So I made this yesterday. I just figured out yesterday.
What camera?
It's a rendering. It's a mount-tracking rendering. Get the hotspots. And get these. Get the info. You can put a YouTube video there.
Yeah, I just figured out. I just started playing with this last game. I hadn't even heard about it.
Yeah, actually, I have to send my
It's not perfect, but it's
for the simplicity of it.
The free tier is really generous.
Yeah,
if you got your model set up nicely with textures and lighting and everything, you just upload your model into the cloud and then it comes back.
So can you walk and then talk? Yeah.
So without any special hardware, you get a pretty good story. And it works in the goggles, but it's a little bit, it's not quite right in the goggles, but it does work. I think just on a screen
I like it a lot on the screen. I haven't used it on the goggles yet. I just started messing around with it.
Yeah, I just tried it. I tried it with today iPhone web version and the version, and it's pretty good. But well, some of it maybe the projection doesn't quite match the perspective or whatever it is, or the zoom level. But I mean, I think just the web presentation is these renderings. This one here is a lower quality one. I'm not sure. I think this one might have been a free rendering. See, it's a little bit, got some graininess. And the rest of them are the highest quality that they have, which costs 16 cloud credits. Which if you had to buy them retail, it's about $16.
Okay.
But what you can do is you can what you can do is you get whatever your perspective is. So you go here and you render in cloud, and you can render a low quality for 0 credits, which it's just watching. It's grainy. It's not really grainy. Anyway, so for 0 credits, you can go and render it, and then once you've got it just the way you want, then do the high quality one and pay for it. And I think students get, they get some free credits. But this was a real, this is a real design. To be able, for $16, to be able to tell a story, that whole
Have you shown that off yet, or is that kind of in-house playtime?
This particular interface is one day. I figured out 24 hours.
Okay. Ask him.
I was shown.
Yeah. Well, it looks like really legit now for 24 hours.
Well, their interface is so easy.
Yeah.
So let's see. want to put another hotspot in here. I want to go down to here. I just drag this. Just drag that onto the scene. It's already got a name. You just name for it, and now it's there. Now it's a hotspot. I didn't even touch the keyboard. That's how things that should be these days.
I agree with that because I need to keep it simple. Stupid version of all
the normal square wants to type into terminal. I don't want to do it.
I can cook today.
I'm good. And so that's you don't even see it. That's it.
Yeah, that's good.
Next guy who looks at it is going to see that hotspot.
I did my third
They have a form. It's just a minor filter. I heard a rumor it's just to lead up.